From the Institute on Religion and Democracy. Our overall goal has been the reform of the political and social witness of the churches in the United States. And as the director of the Religious Liberty Program at IRD and of the Church Alliance for a New Sudan, my job has been to try to reform the witness of the churches towards the persecuted church and towards human rights in general. On the oppression of women, I'm saying the oppression of women under Sharia. There were the irony of two events that took place this week, and then I would even add a third one when I thought about it. But Monday, March 8th, was International Women's Day. And then on Wednesday, March the 10th, the film The Stoning of Soraya M., which is the true story of a wife who became an inconvenience to her brute of a husband. That's my review. That's not the review as it was given. was done away with through trumped-up charges of adultery that are so easily obtained through Sharia Islamic law, was released on DVD for the first time. I thought that it was very interesting that on the week of International Women's Day, which celebrates the economic, political, and social achievements of women, that we had this story again reminding us that under Sharia it's an achievement for a woman just to stay alive, never mind to be able to be free, to pursue her own destiny. And then as the third crazy event of the week, I would say the discovery of Jihad Jane, which kind of gives us the fantasy view of Islam, whereas the stoning of Soraya gives us the reality view. Under Sharia, the oppression of women comes in forms that we've been hearing about already. Honor killings, the testimony of a woman being worth less than a man. In some parts of the Quran, where a woman is considered a toy for her husband's pleasure, where she is permitted to be beaten. There are double standards on infidelity, which is very obvious if you see the film, The Stoning of Soraya. There's the temporary marriage hypocrisy. Basically, what we have is a religiously sanctioned form of misogyny in its truest form, and that's for Muslim women. The situation for non-Muslim women in the Islamic world is even more bleak, if you can believe that. Some apologists have convinced the world, including the feminists today and things like the World Council of Churches and people like that Muhammad was a great champion of women's rights. And although there is some evidence that he raised the standard for Arabian women in some respects, the facts are actually that the Quran allows men and perhaps commands them to beat their wives into subservience. One quote in one translation says, "As for those for whom ye fear rebellion, admonish them and banish them to beds apart and scourge them." Another translation says, "Leave them alone in sleeping places and beat them." In some instances, the being left alone might actually not be such a bad thing, but the beating is definitely abuse. The second fact about the history of Sharia and of Islam in its oppression of women, according to Muhammad, women lack common sense because their minds are deficient. We see that in this idea of the testimony of a woman being worth less than that of a man. But Muhammad said, "O women folk, you should give charity and ask much forgiveness, for I saw in you in bulk amongst the dwellers of hell." And why is that? Well, you curse too much, you're ungrateful to your spouses. I have seen none lacking in common sense and failing in religion, but at the same time robbing the wisdom of the wise besides you. So women are lacking in common sense. And then when women came to Muhammad and asked him, well, why are women lacking in common sense? He said that this is judged by the fact that the evidence of two women is equal to one man. But then in another part of the Muhammad's testimony, it said that the witness of a woman is worth half of a man because she's lacking common sense. So all you have is circular reasoning that doesn't do anything to say that a woman is actually lacking in common sense, which the women here would know that that's really ridiculous. But this is another of the facts that show that this misogyny, this underlying misogyny, women are offered little hope for the afterlife. Most of the inhabitants of hell are women, as we heard, who were disobedient. But even if they stop cursing and start thanking their husbands, the afterlife just doesn't sound like much of a deal to me for women. According to Muhammad, Muslim women can look forward to an eternity of standing in corners waiting for men to come and have sex with them. So women's role in paradise is not much better than it is on earth. So someone should educate Jihad Jane about that fact, that she's not getting a very good deal. And then finally, the other fact is that the Quran permits Muslims to have sex with their female captives and slaves, basically just the rape of all women who are abducted or made captive or made into slavery. Which is something that I'm familiar with because of my work on Sudan, where we have seen the slavery of tens of thousands, at least, of black African Sudanese girls and women. And although there's a peace agreement in Sudan now, thousands still remain enslaved in North Sudan as well as in other parts of North Africa and the Middle East. Then here in the United States and elsewhere in the West, we have the alarmingly growing situation of honor killings of young Muslim women by their fathers and brothers. We have the plight of Rifka Bari, as was mentioned, who converted to Christianity and faced possible death for apostasy, as well as she faced the hostility from American skeptics, including evangelical Christians who were too blinded by political correctness to see the truth of the situation. We have another case like this was the Iraqi Muslim man in Arizona last November who ran over his own daughter in an honor killing because she had brought shame to the family by being too westernized. But I guess there's no shame in turning your tail and running like a rabbit, because that's what he did. He left and fled to England, but then was denied entry and returned to Arizona. He will not get a death penalty because the public defender said it would be wrong for a Christian to execute a Muslim. Well, apparently the decision not to seek the death penalty came after his attorney asked a judge to take special precautions to ensure that the county attorney's office wouldn't wrongly seek the death penalty because he's a Muslim. No, it's because he murdered his daughter. But we have another situation where she was a Muslim, she was murdered by him, but where is the justice for her? We must improve the lives of women under Sharia, and we must stop the plight of Christian girls and women in the Arab and Islamic world in a way that International Women's Day has not done, and we must resist the encroach of Sharia in America. The Archbishop of Sudan, Daniel Deng-Bul, the Archbishop of the Episcopal Church of Sudan, said to America, "If you do not fight now, your grandchildren will have to take up guns." And Archbishop Ben Kouashi of Jos, Nigeria, who just this week lost hundreds of his people in a slaughter that took place as they were sleeping, had previously addressed the West saying, "If you do not resist now, your grandchildren will have to fight the battles you have not had the courage to fight." We must have the courage to fight the political incorrectness that paralyzes so many and keeps us from truly defending women's rights and making an International Women's Day that applies to all.
Thanks.